enjoying an episode where the effective detectives are definitely not Tuvok. It's Feature Please. The Hateful Voyage of the Delta Quadrant. My name is Joseph.
And I am an unnecessary second half to an episode. Peter.
Peter, this second half that we watched, what was it called?
Season 7, Episode 17, Workforce, Part 2. I have to issue an apology on behalf of both of us, really, to everyone out in the audience for yet another unforgivable sin. Joe, do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not sure, actually. I usually listen to the episode a couple times as a consequence of the way we produce, but lately, because of life being a bit scattershot for us, I've really only had time to run through the once. So what did we fuck up?
I'm not going to say this is as bad as me missing 7 of 9's dad being Ugg from Salute Your Shorts, but almost. I'm watching Workforce Part 2, and the credits, the intro, whatever, special guest stars' names pop, and I see Tom Virtue, and I'm like, God, that's a familiar name. Tom Virtue. Why do I know that name? Do you know why I know Tom Virtue?
How do you know Tom Virtue?
Because the labor boss in this episode, who is, what is it? He's just named Supervisor, right? Like 7 of 9's boss in this.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking Howdy Doody.
What?
That's Baxter, man.
What? They recast him as an alien?
Barely an alien with minimal shit on his face? Yes, the guy who was real shitty with the EMH in like episode 4 or whatever.
About his shoulder, because he was doing so many sweet deadlifts.
And then later in Twisted, where he was doing push-ups or whatever. I don't remember if it's Lieutenant Baxter or...
It was he's a lieutenant, yeah.
Yeah. For as many... it was Lieutenant Walter Baxter. For as many times as this guy's been name dropped. And it's not like he was under Klingon makeup or, I don't know, some garbage bag or something. It's just... He's got a fat lip. And I couldn't recognize him. And I'm very shamed.
It's been years since we've seen Howdy Doody. I think we can be forgiven for that. I still suffered from discommendation over that Susie Plaxton thing. So,
rightfully so. I mean, listen, all right, Susie Plaxton, the Duras sisters. This is excusable because Tom Virtue does not have double D's with a boob window, which, is an important reason to remember someone. So it's not quite as bad, but...
after all those pain sticks, I will definitely never forget which big booby Klingon I am referring to. But speaking of discommendations, I kind of want to give one this fucking episode. I'm going to give it a nice big one at the end. That might be a little uncharitable because I think some of this episode is actually pretty good. But it left a sour taste in my mouth, I'll say that. I get it from your intro that perhaps the fact that this was the two-parter syndrome from what we talked about last week is weighed heavily on your mind.
And this is the last two-parter I think we're going to get in Voyager.
Correct. Until the finale, yeah.
We make a big deal out of this because it's a continuity thing, right? Voyager is traditionally terrible about indulging its own continuity and making reference to things that have happened previous in the season. So when you have a 2-part episode, you are guaranteed that for at least those 2 episodes, there is going to be high continuity and a lot of callback opportunities to deep dive and all that other stuff. And none of this is bad, especially for Voyager. This is a good story and everything is good. It's just not great. And again, as I accused in part 1, another example of Voyager writing room just clawing at the walls for any chance to get these characters and tell a story other than the story that they were designed for, which is space people flying around in space doing Starfleet things. 1159, Worst World, which is a minimal offender in that. This Memorial, they hate talking about space and spaceships, and now we're doing like temp staffing fantasy here. So did this need a 2-part? I don't think so.
This episode literally starts as the last one left off, which is Chakotay at the end of the hallway trying to escape from the police that were after him after Neelix scooped up Balana, and he does the old break, something and make it look like he escaped by jumping off the balcony, but lo and behold, he was somehow hidden in plain sight like Spider-Man. Was able to get the drop on the cops after they round the corner. I will note that he straight blasts one of these cops with the alien hand weapon that when it hit him, gave him a serious shoulder injury. So I'm pretty sure Chakotay killed the guy. I'm pretty sure he just fucking laid that guy out with the alien Glock to the chest, and he's dead now.
Well, you know what? Shame on the police. He just shot them with their own gun, and had they been approaching him with stun settings, they would have just been merely stunned. So the bad, I don't know if these are, I don't think these are really bad guys though.
Yeah, the cops are actually portrayed as not being involved in what we will find out is a conspiracy of some of these aliens,
which is interesting. My kind of gut thought in the first episode was that the entire alien species, which having shamed myself not recognizing Baxter, aka Howdy Doody, I went through and actually took a pretty close look at the names and stuff in the Memory Alpha. This alien race is actually called the Quarians, which is lulzy because
that's the name of the Mon Calamari's like client race or something like that in Star Wars.
Yeah, and it's also pretty close to Mass Effect, and the guys in Mass Effect, the Quarians there, they also had a labor problem, and they solved their labor problem with AI, which then promptly kicked their ass in Judgment Day and sent them out in the flotilla like a bunch of interstellar vagabonds.
Can I state how much I appreciated it that in Mass Effect 2, how hard it was to like kumbaya Legion and Tali? Like that actually getting the two of them to stay loyal to you at the same time was very difficult.
Everything about Mass Effect 2 is phenomenal. And I don't know, maybe we need to do a refresher course on Mass Effect, but for all my dick sucking of Mass Effect 1, trying to get through it has been a real chore, and I think it's because I played it too many times, but I am more receptive to your criticisms that it's just too much.
It is. They didn't figure out what that game series was at that point, and then they figured it out in 2, and then in 3, I think is a great game, just ends poorly. So
and to 3's end as well, you're talking about the hard decisions you have to make between the Quarrens and the Geth. There's no happy ending at the end of 3. If you take the plain fact, which is the ending of 3 sucks, and you can throw that in the trash and move on with it, there really isn't, to its credit, there really isn't everything works out great for everybody and everyone's on the same page now. I think the closest you can get is like the symbiosis ending, which I don't know, gets everyone sick with like Borg pixie dust, basically.
Yeah, everyone has the Matrix sheen on them. That is the Kumbaya ending, by the way. Like that is the one where everyone's just people and robot at the same time now. Hooray forever! Everyone in the galaxy is united, and peace reigns forever. It is way, 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 way too much.
I found that ending to be horrific, though.
It is like stripping everyone's like like individuality and kind of taking the choice away from them. And
you basically just assimilated the entire universe, right? I mean,
the entire galaxy. Yeah,
they're just assimilated.
Everyone's just robot people.
I love Mass Effect. What if they did a Netflix Mass Effect show?
No, I saw what they did to Cowboy Bebop. Fuck off.
Ooh.
That looks rough. You know why that looks rough? You know what? Like, there's a lot of people who have a lot of different complaints. Some of them I understand, some of them I don't. My number one complaint is John Cho is way too old.
Dude, I was about to say, like,
old.
It looks like Grandpa.
Yeah, he looks old and he moves old. Like they had the trailer came out for that recently.
Yep.
He just like moves like an 80-year-old, and I'm like, this isn't cool. Like Spike is supposed to be like Bruce Lee. Like, he is supposed to be a good hand-to-hand fighter, very quick, very agile, very
Young in the face.
young. And this John Cho is just ancient. He's older than us. Like, and we're old. It's not okay. And he's Asian and he looks old. You know how hard that is? Anyway, so speaking of what we have to actually talk about with the Star Trek, and speaking of Asians, we cut up to Voyager where Harry Kim and the ECH doctor with his red uniform on are attempting to escape from Quarren patrol ships, continuing our the CG is good, experience from the last time. We'll give it props again. CG continues to be good, and the doctor is really flexing his nuts so hard right now.
I have this in my notes as Kim continuing to ride bitch.
Yes, and the Doctor has, of course, all of the tactical maneuvers of every starship captain ever, because he's AI, and he comes up with the plan of, I'm just going to drop some photon torpedoes between these two. I'm going to shoot them with a phaser. It's going to create a shockwave, and we'll be able to beat feet out of here. And they do it. They actually pull the maneuver and show the whole effect, and it looks very cool, and indeed it works, and the Doc is feeling himself real hard. Harry Kim is not enjoying riding bitch to the machine in the slightest.
I'm always a sucker for those like Top Gun moments where it's, kick on the brakes, turn backwards and shoot a guy, or drop a mine and shoot it and create that implosion wave. Those don't look like they are, at least at this point in, is this 2000 or 2001? This is February 28th, 2001. I don't think those are cheap CGI effects to pull off, but it's a tight space battle, man.
It is. And then we wrap up the teaser, I guess, with Chakotay going back to the bar. He's wounded. Janeway's like, hey, sorry, my boyfriend was, super rude to you before. We're celebrating moving into with each other. You want to come over? And he's like, no, I have a gaping wound. I'm good. And then they wrap that and go back to that scene after the teaser, where we are introduced to Good Cop. Is the way to, I think, describe him. Yedrid is his name, and
Detective Yedrid.
He is Good Cop. He is not only an effective crime solver in this episode. He is, the
lawful good.
He is the kind of man who is attempting to do right by his profession. He is on the lookout, obviously, for these weirdos who are kidnapping and shooting and killing cops and bad times.
So let me ask you this. Chakotay's disguise that the Doctor gave him, is he one of the bad jailbirds from
yeah, you brought that up last week. Yeah, he looks like it. He's got the big things around his eyes.
So he's just like really furthering some bad Delta Quadrant stereotype.
Yeah, yes, he decided to, for whatever reason, make himself look like a race that is over-policed and is thought to be criminals, and immediately committed several different felonies on Workforce Planet. Yes, that is what happened. Sullying their name further.
I'm having a real hard time.
I can't even describe the equivalent of what that would be for someone here without us getting canceled.
No, it wasn't Flesh and Blood. What was the Space Texan episode called?
The Space Texan episode.
Oh, come on. It's not The Void.
Voyager needs to impress me enough for me to remember the goddamn episode titles, and it has not done that in some time.
Repentance, right?
Repentance. Okay, yeah.
Repentance was hot button topic, woke for the year 2000 and year 2000 probably. I think that was still a December thing, right? That was very intentionally a political episode trying to stress a point, which they completely fucking butcher in that episode with mixed messages, right?
And after I edited it, by the way, I remembered the framing device, because this would have been produced during, like the summer of 2000, which was an election year when George W. Bush, who was governor of Texas, and it was a big deal because he was overseeing so many executions. That was the very special episode line. That's why I think why it was in in the forefront of the political discussion back then.
So in that episode, you took the people who are over policed and over prosecuted on very circumstantial like the pity card they try to play, which is like these dudes are getting shit on unfairly. The second half of the episode, you go, by the way, this guy that we've built all this sympathy for really is shitty, and let's muddy the message we're sending. And then 4 episodes later, you're gonna drag those guys out to attack an alien civilization and kill their police. Like
Guys,
Fuller, Kenneth Biller. What are you guys doing here? Like the fuck?
What are you trying to say? Because it's not good.
Are you guys like mirror universe writers now? Do you all have standing collars and jackboots? What is this? I will point out this episode. Last one was Mike V'ger, I believe. This is Roxanne Dawson.
It's her second try in the director's chair, and as we've noted, that's actually what she ends up doing after Voyager. She does not act very much anymore. She becomes full-time TV director.
Yeah.
So this is very important to her in terms of the development of her career, that they let her have a second one, and she would go on to actually do episodes of Enterprise. So like a new career is birthed from this moment for her.
So anyways, Chakotay, who is wearing some very questionable blackface here, is having a very bad day because not only, as you mentioned, has he been shot, but he also found out that his girlfriend has shacked up with another dude.
His wannabe girlfriend. His girlfriend in his mind.
And they're moving in together.
Good cop comes in, tries to find Chakotay. Tom's like, oh, he's right over there. And he's gone. Like, okay, he's escaped. They cut back to Voyager briefly and introduce like this is what's happening with, like the good guys are figuring out what's going on, and they've got B'Elanna, and they say like, well, her memory engrams have been rewritten. The doctor, of course, being the doctor, is like, I can revive people who died at Space Spider Island. This is nothing. I can fix this, but I need you, Neelix, because you're in this episode, to do the thing you're best at, which is remind people of their lives and kind of do the morale officer sentimentality thing. And he's like, I'm on the case. I know that's what I'm good at. And they will have their separate little B plot, which I think got sequestered the way that it did because Roxanne Dawson is the director, right? So she can't be in much of the episode because she's fucking doing all the other scenes. And so they've got a couple quiet, basically one-on-ones with her and Neelix that will be easier for her to manage.
The number of times that Neelix has had to guide people in from amnesia now, I think is a disturbingly high number. I think he has walked more people back into their previous lives than Tom has like successfully docked the ship with a space station and other like really mundane things.
Yeah, I remember the Simple Jack sessions with Tuvok.
Among many others. Like this is he's not just the ambassador, he's like the memory health. I'm trying to think what that medical term is. Yeah, there's a lot of amnesia on Voyager. They're very lucky to have someone as adept at guiding people as he is.
When we cut back to the planet, we are seeing what we will call good doctor and bad doctor. And this is kind of where it starts to become more clear that it's not that this planet or all the aliens on it are the bad guys. It's that it's a certain subsect of them. Because you've got kind of the older doctor who's trying to treat Tuvok, who went super duper crazy last episode. And, he's like talking about his Katra and all that. Like the brain rewiring isn't taking with him because he's a Vulcan. He's too neurologically complex. And the older doctor is clearly saying, oh, he has this dysphagia syndrome, and he's the expert. While the younger doctor is like starting to ask more probing questions about it. And is clearly not in on the brainwashing part of this. Like he thinks that they're like legitimately treating these people. And they set up that sort of, okay, so whatever's going on here, there are honest brokers, which is helpful because then that leads into what we find out about good cop, and like it provides a way for this episode to essentially have an off ramp, right? Like this is going to get solved somehow. And by setting up like that it's a conspiracy, now we know like the good guy aliens can uncover what the bad guy aliens are doing.
Yeah, and that's kind of refreshing. I feel like it has been a very long time in Voyager since it has not been an entirely flat 2D villainous species. Like there's some good moral conflict and there's some good opportunity for the species to self-police in the end and kind of redeem itself. And I think it's more of a real world scenario. Although it does seem very sloppy for the lead doctor to not have uh, such a well-connected subordinate not in on the plan. Although he is the main doctor is extremely cocky and a bitch and overconfident, which
Hey, he's a doctor. I mean, I know some doctors, some are very nice people, others they're like this guy. Like, is this true?
the point, like later in the scene where the good doctor starts confronting with all the other stuff, like the amount of stank that the bad doctor exudes with like eye rolls and stuff, really top shelf. I enjoyed their chemistry, and I thought all the doctor stuff was really solid in this.
They spend a lot of time with them too. Like they give the two of them a very critical scene where it's two guest actors acting against each other, which is rare. You know, like they don't do that a lot.
I would say the last time was Muse, that I would remember off the top of my head, where you really had this much guest on guest interactions.
Next scene is 7 of 9, who's our other detective. You know, detective's not Tuvok. That is this theme of this episode. 7 starts to have flashbacks of her time not being on this planet because she got hit with the mind meld by the very crazy Tuvok earlier, and it's made her suspicious. Well, what is this? What's going on?
Her
I don't like this.
flashbacks are of the Borg cube, and we get a pretty nice slow panning shot. So many catwalks on these cubes. I'm sitting there and I'm wondering, like, I wonder with all the doodads that the Borgs get assimilated, if they get like Fitbit step counters and what the average step count for a drone ends up looking like in a 24-hour. They got to be beating 10,000 steps.
Oh,
right?
no problem, right? Yeah, 15,000 minimum.
Also,
has some fit drones.
I would assume the Quarrens know what Borg are since they're a Delta Quadrant species. Like, it doesn't scare the shit out of them to any degree whatsoever that this lady is a former drone.
I guess they're far away enough from Borg spaceman. I don't even really know much about them, right? Like, or they're like bonus, right? Like, this bitch is gonna be awesome.
Hey, you know what? I'm reading over her memories here. She's got a lot of fond memories of engineering departments. Yeah, let's put her at the power plant. What's the worst that could happen? Smash cut to 7 of 9 shooting up the engineering station in the power plant.
And we almost did that. We very nearly did that. Instead, she decided to bust up a different scientific area at the end of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
After 7 of 9 kind of does some initial, like, what happened to Tuvok, what happened to this person, what happened to that person, kind of investigating, and the good cop shows up and starts asking questions. We finally go back to really the heart of the episode, and that is Kathy Janeway living her best life, right? Like her rom-com adventure she's having with her boyfriend, where she's like moving in and they're having like a quirky conversation about her wanting to decorate the place with spent plasma relays.
Trash. And Janeway hoards trash.
Yeah, she's a hoarder. You know, she would be on a trashy, American reality show if it were the 20th century.
Joe, I don't think we have a better place to discuss this, but I did want to mention something from the trauma support group that I saw people bring up. In this episode specifically, they play what I feel is the overplayed trope that Janeway always burns the roast, right?
Correct. They did that in the last episode, yeah.
Tying back in the last episode as well, there was another mention about Chakotay being a vegetarian. And if that's true, like, Janeway inviting Chakotay over for dinner where she burns the roast, like, what a dick move when your boss knows you're a vegetarian then it calls you over for like pot roast dinners.
That's true. I guess maybe, like, does he not count it if it's like replicated meat? Like, he's a vegetarian only if it was actually a live thing?
I have spent so much time thinking about our replicator talk since then. Like, I don't want to drag us back down the hole, but is there a could you just like fake protein for the replicator stock, or would the base always have to come back to like red meat, bloody,
It would just
dead
have to be
animal?
biomatter, right? Like the whole thing would just be you would have non-edible matter and edible matter because the edible matter could be resequenced to be whatever you want molecule by molecule, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like so yeah, I would presume they could do that.
Again, that just
Like
makes me
it is near magic science, right? Like that is what replicators are. So yeah, of course they could.
again. I will restate. I think at that
So
point,
it's
everybody's
not cheating if it's the replicator and you're
mhm.
referring to your diet.
He's vegan, not what's the other one that you can't wear leather?
I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh yeah, gosh, I don't know. I'm not hip enough to know what the other one is. There's
Whatever that
vegan.
is sounds really dumb, and that makes it true. When and the point of this scene being that Janeway, oh, I have to go get more of my stuff because we're quirky. She goes back to her apartment, and of course, Chakotay is there holding a gun on her, and we start to have the dun dun dun
So
of,
this is a classic entry Voyager likes to play, and it's Chakotay knows, but Janeway doesn't.
and then there's Voyager conspiracy where they both know and don't know, and then like show up to a meeting to shoot each other. Remember that?
Yeah, it's like a love triangle. It's knowing, not knowing, and gunfights and pulling guns. The Chakotay Janeway love triangle of confusion.
Chakotay starts to like lay out what's going on here, and this is where the episode starts to run into some problems for me. Is that they don't do a very good job of explaining why Janeway would like buy into the story that Chakotay is telling her. I feel like if there was something from the doctor, some kind of communication of like their memory engrams have been rewritten, but you can start to like get them to remember by doing X, Y, or Z or something like that, like where
Hey,
him like
reprogram a flashlight so it strobes and it kind of fucks it up a little bit.
yeah, like there needed to be a bridge between Chakotay shows up there and starts kind of like giving her hints about what's going on and her just like starting to believe him. I think you're meant to think that like she just, that all of this is kind of imperfect because of the scenes that are going to happen between Neelix and Balana. And so like her talking to him is starting to like get her to believe this because they know each other.
I thought it was kind. It's a cool scene. It's a cool premise. Um, the lighting was interesting. That they want to have this whole conversation and this unveiling in the dark. And Chakotay begins by laying out these breadcrumbs of like, here's the details about what's going on. My crew is stuck here. My ship, this, that. He at no point is telling her that she's involved in this, but she's very interested. And then Voyager gets close enough that they're able to hit Chakotay's comm badge, and he takes a call. This is perhaps one of the worst persuasive speeches I've seen since Man of Steel, where General Zod like tries to high pressure sales pitch Superman on
I
refounding Krypton on the skulls of his friends and family in this nuclear
yeah,
holocaust.
Yeah, if you've never seen Man of Steel, the Zack Snyder Man of Steel, which I think is an excellent movie that gets hampered by just a few very poor filmmaking decisions, mostly in the third act. The one of them is that Zod apparently just doesn't know how to read the room, and so he's like, "I'm going to pitch the idea of rebuilding Krypton in the most honest and most gruesome way possible." To really show I'm a bad guy.
We could do a whole podcast. Maybe we should do that movie because I love to rant on that.
I would actually really like to talk. I would love to defend that movie against you. I feel like
I like the movie. I'm just saying that the whole fucking down point of that movie was him, instead of being reasonable and just being like, hey man, you've got the key to us saving our entire civilization, and if you work with me, we can refound Krypton hand in hand with these humans and it'll be great. And also we'll all be born as fucking Supermen under a yellow sun, instead of like, humans have to die and we are going to repopulate this earth like a fucking like, and literally them standing on a farm of skulls like Terminator Judgment Day. Ridiculous.
it's like he
Side
didn't
note,
even try to lie. It's like, just lie. If
He
you would
didn't
lie,
even need to lie. I mean,
yeah.
all right, we're getting too sidetracked there. I also want to say real fast, I ended up watching way more of Looper than I meant to the other day, and I
Okay.
maintain it's a good movie. It's just a fucking stupid premise that his wife got killed with a gun.
I started to hate that movie more, because of Ryan Johnson. So, I'm coming over to your opinion on the matter.
Oh well, hey, look at that. Chakotay is like laying this groundwork. They hit him up. Voyager contacts him, and then he just like looks at Janeway. Is like, yeah, well, I'm here with the captain, and just like drops all this shit on her. It's for being the person who is the most in touch with like emotional intelligence and the closest that Voyager has to a counselor. This is some real butterfingers on Chakotay. So
Like
he
I said,
drops.
this is missing some indication from the doctor of like, this is like, drop that on her, like, shocker system, whatever. Like, some explanation that this was the correct thing to do. Because otherwise, it just seems kind of, we didn't know how
Dick
else to
move.
do it. Yeah.
Like we've been sitting in this room the whole time talking for like half an hour, and you're gonna only bring up the fact that you know me and I have an alternate life and I'm living a lie right now while we're on the phone with your friends in a conference call. Like dick move. So she throws her hands up and is like, "Whoa, yo, no, 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 I'm out." And she rightfully leaves, very confused and probably scared, and goes back to Space Mark.
So, also, kind of like in this part of the episode, is when Seven of Nine starts to figure out more and more about, like, oh, like, well, Tuvok was really interested in all of these employees, including me, everyone who started at the same day. Like, she's putting all the pieces together, right? Of like, things are fucked. This is not okay. And also, we get the scene in B'Elanna's quarters with Neelix, where he's like starting to take her through her life, and we have a, hey, remember the episode where you made the television? Remember the episode a couple weeks ago when you got that batleth?
Wrong Batleth. I don't know if you saw that.
Was it a different batleth
It's a
prop?
standard like modern batleth, not like that wicked Skyrim Druger black iron super pointy batleth that was hanging over a child's crib. My favorite part of that scene was them looking at a picture of her and Tom and sure being like, "What is this? Is this he's my husband? How could this be?" And then Neelix is like, "Yeah, of course it's real. How else could we have a picture of it?" And I'm like, the idea of a picture being faked, being improbable by a warp capable society. Oh, late 90s, early 2000s, you and your pre Photoshop.
It's it wasn't even like they were doing photo manipulation in the 40s. I mean, like, come on, guys. Like, this was 60-year-old technology when you made the fucking episode. They cut back to the planet. Space Mark is like, it sounds like some fucking bullshit, Kathy.
Space
Like,
Mark, real quick, being, what's his name? Joffron?
yeah,
Jaffe?
he's Space Mark. I like Space Mark way
I
more.
like Space Mark too. I'm just making sure everybody's on that Jaffin. This is Janeway's hot and heavy new romantic
And we say
friend.
Space Mark because Mark, being Janeway's original fiance, basically looks exactly like this guy.
Yeah.
Kind of an older guy, like gray hair. Like, this is similar look. We as we noted, Janeway has a type. This guy is her type. Hey, works. That's great. But he's very supportive, right? He thinks this is crazy, but he's not trying to like fuck her over. But at the same time, eventually does convince her to, like, you need to call security. This is just, let's go. This is not good.
Janeway instead decides to go back and talk to Chakotay a little bit more. It's in this scene that Chakotay goes to finally prove things to her and gets the dermal regenerator that he convinced her to steal from work so that he could heal the wound up on his shoulder. And he melts off the prosthetics and reveals that he's a human, just like Janeway. I thought it was interesting that the dermal regenerator will get rid of plastic surgery, but not his sick face tattoos.
Well, one of those is a character trait. Doesn't get rid of those. The good cop busts in, arrest Chakotay. They take him back to the precinct, and that's when you start to really understand things are fucky, because he's questioning him. And that's when the feds show up, like the CIA, and they're like, "Yeah, we're taking this guy away." And he's like, "No, no, no, you don't." He's like, he's a witness in a kidnapping. you killed a cop earlier. Like he's did crimes. He did crimes.
They're like, nope, Section 7 needs him. Sorry. Up to this point, good cop hasn't really been clearly white hat good cop. He's
Right.
just
He's
been,
just been doing his job. Right.
which has seemed a little fascist. They're making him seem like maybe this guy's a dick, but this is where he gets his eyes opened and pushed to the outside, and will end up befriending the rest of the refugees stranded on the planet.
We get a little bit more like Chakotay makes Balana pancakes. Apparently, she's a big fan of the pancakes.
Oh, Neelix, yeah. We also
And
find
she,
out that Balana is just reading Tom's private logs. I'm going to air quote private.
yeah, like little bit of light, privacy violations happening here to convince her that the two of them were in love. I guess. Good thing you didn't write like, man, my fucking wife's a bitch in there. Like, glad they were glowing, man.
For a TV show that is going to act like Photoshop didn't exist, I like that they were able to see into the future and realize the everyday betrayal of trust that is reading your wife or husband's text messages.
Yeah, but for good, right? for good reasons. You got amnesia.
So we jump over, and finally things really start moving into high gear here. It's not just the inspector who has been kicked to the outside. Good doctor is finally pried enough into this stuff. He gets a little visit by Seven of Nine, who comes in, pumps him for some questions, says she wants to talk to Bad Doctor. And while Good Doctor is out, she hacks the medical logs, and this is where she pulls.
It's worth pointing out that she does that after having a conversation with Good Cop. They do have a nice bit of setup and a little actual interaction between Good Cop and Seven of Nine, where Seven of Nine is figuring out fucky shit is happening. Yedrid, the Good Cop, is figuring out fucky shit is happening, and then they have like a quiet meeting in a fucking cafeteria somewhere, and it's like, I think we both know this is not good. And Good Cop's like, yeah, I got like taken off the case and I'm like suspended and just for like being next to whatever this is. It's not good. He needs to be like talked into helping a little bit. He's definitely a white hat, but like Seven of Nine's like, what are you, a pussy? Like she really pushes him to help, and he
I
goes
might
for
not
it.
remember my previous life, but I do know I'm very good at talking down to positions of authority and emasculating people into getting my way. So she tells him that he has a little peepee and that his mom is fat, and he cries a little bit and then grows a pair and decides that he's going to help her uncover the truth.
And that's what leads to the scene where Seven goes and basically rinses the young doctor's trust to break into the medical computer and find out what the fuck is going on.
So, like you said, she's able to uncover a bunch of stuff, and in the process, the good doctor, looking over the information she's stolen, sees the conspiracy as well. This goofy mental condition that is extremely rare that the bad doctor has now um, played twice. He sees that there's 130 or whatever Voyager's crew complement is this episode, all submitted on the same day, all through the same program, all of them ending up at the same power plant. I want to jump back to our conversation earlier last episode about, for it being a 3-day travel for Voyager at max warp, at what point all of this memory rewrite happens. I think we have to assume that all these guys were in fact dropped on the surface and then processed through the hospital, that those memory rewrites did not happen in transit. Good doctor takes all this information and kind of starts going and questioning bad doctor, who does not fight things very long before he finally pulls back the curtain and reveals his evil, I guess his capitalistic plans, that he and the chief inspector and the minister of labor and Howdy Doody are all in on this conspiracy.
You might even say there's a deep state conspiracy.
Look at that. I like the line in this episode where he's like, the real public health threat is a labor shortage, and the ends justify the mean, all that. And I'm like, oh, man, you're really ringing my bell, Dr. Evil.
You look at your empty warehouse like, yep. Like, that is
Yeah,
true.
man, I need to get some indoctrinated. Do you ever play Syndicate Wars?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting off of this. I just would go down, walking down the street with the Persuadatron and just indoctrinate all the civilians so they become a big angry mob and help me kill the enemy factions. That's all this doctor's doing here. Just some good old bullfrog fun.
Meanwhile, Good Cop goes back to talk to Janeway and Space Mark and is like, yeah, it turns out this guy was telling the truth about this stuff because we found all kinds of fucky shit out. And they go to reliable known convict space prison breaker outer extraordinaire Tom Paris hideout at his bar and decide to have basically a group conference about what's going on after
I
all of
want to
this has
draw
happened.
parallels to one of the previous entries into the Voyager crew is living a different life, which was Worst World, which the rebel cell operated out of a bar just the same way. Like, in a lot of ways, man, this is just a rewrite of the fantasy in Killing Game.
They have the conversation at the bar, and Space Mark, is told, you apparently not involved in whatever is going on with the rest of us. Apparently, this was a few weeks ago, so on and so forth. But we've put together too many problematic pieces for this not to possibly be as true as we are being told it's true. So what are we going to do? Janeway remembers the exact line of technobabble that Chakotay, that I guess Harry Kim mentioned on the comlink, and says, oh yeah, they were using a trilaxing frequency and a covariant subspace band to contact Voyager. And they come to the conclusion there is a subspace transceiver in the power plant that's going to go to the power plant and use it to contact Voyager and find out a way to solve this problem. Meanwhile, Bad Doctor is using Chakotay, having been indoctrinated with fake memories, to bring Voyager into a trap so they can finish the job and cover up their crime. So there is a ticking clock element that Voyager is about to show up, and they're going to fall into a trap. And so whatever they're about to do on the surface, they got to go do.
The big question mark for me in this is Space Mark. What is going to happen to Space Mark? I got my notes. Man, I hope they don't kill Janeway's boyfriend. I've kind of grown fond of this guy. My money is on him turning into some sort of Benedict Arnold. Him ultimately being unwilling to let Janeway run off to this other world. He wants to keep her blue-pilled in the fantasy and his life happy, but I don't know. Something's going to have to happen. They end up going to the power plant, which luckily for them, this big, super important power plant that's powering the city that's short on labor and everything, only runs 2 shifts. You don't need a third shift.
Apparently, they just love to work so much. Just run that 12-hour shift back and forth.
Mm-hmm. You turn the lights off, and there's no night crew. The janitor comes in and mops the floor. There's nobody else there to take care of this place. So they get free run of the building. Janeway gets in with Space Mark. She starts punching some stuff into the computer. Mysteriously, the alarms go off, and I'm like, oh, Space Mark, you set her up, you jerk.
And it vanishes from the catwalk.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, he did it. They cut to the hospital where Good Cop and 7 of 9 have headed. And apparently, Bad Doctor was prepared for many eventualities, but not Good Cop pointing a gun at him. And then, of course, the most powerful weapon of all, being grabbed on his arm. That is ultimately what subdues Bad Doctor, is that 7 of 9 just pops up and just grabs him by the arm and be like, I can just rip this out and beat you to death with it. Like, do you know who I am? Like,
I have now been victimized by this paralyzing grasp several times, and I am a master. I've assimilated the technology of grabbing a bitch by the arm. And you, sir, are a bitch, and I have grabbed you by the arm, so you will
he was like, he might have escaped from the space Glock, but not at all from being grabbed on the arm. That is too potent a fucking technique. And so they have like unlimited success. They like break into the back where all of the bad juju is happening. They find Tuvok, they find Chakotay, they find Good good doctors had his memories rewritten because apparently he didn't go for being part of the conspiracy.
New
Like
World Order.
it's real bad back there. It's a real horror show. And at the power plant, Janeway's like, I'm gonna run this way. Oh no, it's the police. I want to run this way. Oh no, it's the police. I'm gonna look over the railing. I'm gonna jump down.
There's some real vibes of 1989 Batman Access chemical plant chase here.
When she hits the ground, oh no, more cops. But that is when Space Mark shows up and judo chops someone and shoots someone else and then shoots another guy. And he's like, hey, babe, I wouldn't have left you hanging. I just came in at the appropriate dramatic moment.
I was excited to see Space Mark, and I was excited to see Space Mark beat some ass. Like,
yeah, he throws down. He like takes 3 dudes out. He was useful.
I don't know what his previous life was before coming to work in a power plant, but I can only assume that involved a stint in professional wrestling.
They ultimately, so the ship gets stuck in the trap. We finish up our D plot of like the Doctor being the best captain ever, and he can't think on his feet. That is the issue. He's like stuck with only the book learning techniques, and so Harry comes up with a plan to slip the trap of ejecting the remaining escape pods to make it look like everyone but the Doctor's left, while shielding their life signs in the conference room. But surprise, those escape pods had torpedoes in them and they explode. So it's a very similar trick to the one they used before, but different and in a novel way, and I liked it.
I enjoyed Kim and the Doctor's little interplay in that scene. It's one of the rare moments anymore where Harry Kim does not instantly disgust me and piss me off with Garrett Wang, who subsequently has driven me away from Delta Flyers. But that's another conversation.
I'm surprised you lasted as long as you did. That guy was just cancer from the moment I started listening to that show until I stopped.
Rough. So they get things kind of sorted out up there, and we very quickly tidy things up down on the surface, despite the fact that the chief of police and Howdy Doody and the head doctor and a couple other government officials seem to be in on it. Good cop manages to, I don't know, get the president.
Hey, listen, we all know that space presidents are very easy to get a hold of. You can just beam into their office with guns.
That's true.
We learned that a long time ago.
Well, they're having a labor shortage, so it's entirely possible the space president may have been like out doing a trash route or driving a school bus or something. So maybe
it's like it's the Raising Cane employees are all working in stores right now.
Mm-hmm. So they start wrapping things up. Guys come back up on the ship. There's a real bullshit scene, one of the most unbelievable scenes of all of Voyager, and it's Tom sitting there eating popcorn, watching some old black and white cartoons, laughing like he's watching an Eddie Murphy comedy special. I don't think I've seen anybody ever laugh at cartoons, but there Tom is. He just had a little bit too much space Prozac, I think.
They're trying to get his dose back right. Everyone's kind of a loopy. The worst scene of all time, to me, is what ends this episode, and that is the fate of Space Mark. You go
first.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm glad that we can spend some time here. Space Mark was a total bro through both of the two-parters. He's a good boyfriend. He did all the good boyfriend things. He's Kathy's type, all of that. But he's a good engineer, right? He's good at his job. He's friendly. He makes friends. He was happily threw down with a wild conspiracy with a bunch of people he didn't know because he was obviously very much liked Kathy. He's useful in a fight. Took out like 3 dudes. He's clearly better than all of the security guards on Voyager on that basis
loyal
alone.
To the point he was willing to get involved in very clear treason in attacking a power plant after hours.
Yeah, like this dude was ride or die immediately with the heroes and was effective both on a technological level and an actual fist to nose level. Okay? This guy is solid gold. Oh, and as they establish, he really just came there for work. So he's just looking for a job, right? Like he's available, right? Joe, he just doesn't have ties.
I'm getting physically mad as you're talking.
Yes. Well, I think we need to we need to catalog that they set up Space Mark as being awesome. right? And that there's no reason that the story is provided before this scene that Space Mark couldn't just come with them. He is perfectly positioned both in personality, capability, and lack of substantive ties that he actually could just join Voyager and go wherever they're going and be very fulfilled by that, right? Regardless of his relationship with the captain. That's just a bonus. And he comes into the scene and, you know, he conveys like, oh, my memories were real. I apparently just came here for work. And they like, you know, it's like, it could work for you, but I can't because, you know, you're the captain, so clearly you can't have a boyfriend. And
Not
I
even
just,
that, dude. He doesn't say any of that. He says they put Howdy Doody in jail for kidnapping people, and I got a promotion at work. And then it goes over to Janeway, who's wringing her hands and all like, "Oh God, I wish I could just bring you with me, but I can't fraternize with the crew because that's my own made up bullshit code."
there was
Picard
literally,
totally
there's a
dated.
literally an episode of TNG where Picard gets a girlfriend, dates one of his subordinates. It was like the very Mrs. Robinson looking lady, Commander Mrs. Robinson. Like, they're like both into music. They like do the little concert in the Jeffries tube and then like make out. He's like super broy with Riker at one point because he's getting laid. You know, like there's a
He
whole
sends her to her death, or
yeah.
thought she would get sent to her death, and it causes mixed feelings. And
He
she
decides
transfers it.
he's cool with still dating her, but she's the one who's like, yeah, you sent me to my death. I'm out of here. Like, but nothing. There was nothing against regulations. He's allowed to have a girlfriend
Janeway's allowed to have a boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever.
or
Yes.
whatever. Yeah, it's 24th century, but like, it's there's this thing she makes up as the reason is not actually a reason. There's no rule
Waste
that says she has to do this.
waste of everybody's fucking time. Okay, 2-part episode. You've got an okay alternate life jailbreak kidnapping episode, which could have been one 45-minute episode. You have this massive B plot, which is basically a co-A plot of Janeway finally gets a boyfriend. And it's so important that you make a 2-part episode so you can have this fucking thing running parallel. Yet you hit a grand slam on the first episode where you've got immediate viable chemistry between Space Mark and Janeway. And you spend almost an entire episode of just having these guys have a lovey-dovey romance. And this guy is a fucking MVP. For what? You get to the end 3 minutes of the episode and you manufacture this horseshit reason why you can't bring this guy along. What the fuck was the point of any of this? All right. Either incorporate him into the crew and create a conflict for Jane. Just give Janeway a fucking boyfriend that lives in her thing, right? We're in episode 17. How many
Yeah,
more episodes do we have
we
to go?
don't have much more of the show. Hire the guy for like 2 more episodes that he'd be in, right? And be
You could
like,
kill him off and it could be like traumatic. He could just be in the background. Like, when's the last time we saw Icheb? And he's a big fucking deal, right? You
yeah,
don't see half the crew members on Voyager on a regular basis. You barely even see Neelix. This guy could have been there in the background. You could have killed him off next episode when the fucking, the next time Seska pops her head up or whatever. And you could have a meaningful death, which Voyager hates having. They just make up fake bullshit crew members to kill off like we're supposed to care about them. Or if you're going to have this scene where, God, you know what? I love you. You love me. We could be together, but it's just not in the cards. Have him be a look. I'd love to go, but I got family here. My mom's sick and she doesn't have much time
yeah,
before she's dead. I can't go with you. I don't want to go to Earth. There's some
yeah,
reason that I have to stay here. Not, oh, I'd love to bring you along, but I can't fraternize with the crew and shucks.
yeah. It's the worst possible reason. I would have been fine with, hey, my memories got effed with too. Turns out I like have family on another planet.
That you can't delete, Janeway.
Something like that, or some kind of reason why he can't go with them. I would have been happy to accept, but they go out of their way to show. It's like they use this scene to be like, no, that's not it. That's not actually it. We're just not gonna be together because you just don't want to be.
You could have had Janeway say, "You know what? I'd like to bring you on the ship, but I think my holographic boyfriend would get jealous, or I wouldn't feel that something that silly would have been better than this. I cannot think of any way to make this any stupider or worse of a conclusion to a 2 episode plot arc than what we got. And for that reason, it makes this entire fucking thing a waste of time and just pisses me off. This is a real bed shitting.
It is, and it's why what I said at the beginning of like I want to give this episode a discommendation because it's actually pretty good up until this scene, and then this scene is just awful. It's just cat. They just like walked it in, you know, like they just couldn't. They,
All,
they couldn't
all
do
of
it.
the bad romances we've been subjected to, Tuvok and Tank Girl, the many brides of Harry Kim.
Chakotay and the girlfriend he couldn't remember, played by Virginia Madsen.
You name it. There has been, and some of the romances have been pretty cool. Like I like Chakotay's Borg girlfriend, but all of the shitty romances that have been paraded in front of us, and then finally you find one that clicks. You close the episode off on the, gosh, season 7's been pretty decent. I think this is probably, as it stands right now, going to be my weakest shit award, which feels like a real waste for Star Trek that I'm wasting a weakest shit award on.
We've had such weaker shit, so like I agree. This is probably my front runner as well for weakest shit of season 7 so far. Well, I think we got enough turds coming up that you might change your mind on that. But
I'm mad. Yeah, I'd never thought I'd get so mad about a fucking love subplot.
Yeah, or Janeway's love subplot, but here we are.
Ugh.
Here we are. Yeah, whatever. They start going home, and at that point, I didn't fucking care. So, what are we watching next week?
Season 7, episode 18, Human Error, and there is 7 and 9 looking real smug in the Tuvik's Memorial Death Cove. 7's attempt to explore her human side distracts her from her duties and puts Voyager at risk. This sounds like a real Data episode.
Yeah, this is prefaces the worst subplot of season 7. You already know what it is because I think it's like a meme in its own right. But we'll still explore it fresh when we get there next week. Yeah, this one not great. The one after that is Q2, which is just gonna kick you right in the balls for a multitude of reasons. We do trend back up for the rest of the show though after that.
I hope so. Speaking of trending, well, maybe we'll save it. I don't know. I've been catching up on my lower decks, and there's been some pretty good entries towards the back half of the season. I got one more to go. Maybe we'll talk. We'll do a little recap on that in the next few episodes.
I gotta actually I stopped watching after episode 3 because I stopped hearing good things. Not sure what your take has been, but I kind of felt a little disengaged from the process.
Yeah, that's why it took me so long to catch up on these past few. But like I said, the last 2 before, so the last 3, I'm in the last 3, and they've gotten good. But we'll see. All right, man. I got a headache from all my yelling about fucking space war.
All right. Let's talk to everybody later. Thanks for listening to Feature Please Hate the Voyage of the Delta Quadrant. We'll see you next week.